Propwash podcast, Thom Hunt.
Thank you very much, and I'm very impressed by this.
Mate, we're up in our game. We're not in this for no reason. So yeah, it's just great. I think this dynamic, people can sit in the truck and they can listen to this on obviously Podbean or Apple Podcasts, as you've done. You've heard a few of the episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, you can watch this on YouTube and you can see us and the way we interact in those dynamics. So we've got two ways of doing it.
Mate, you're the whole media package.
It's good. Ben is working hard behind the camera there. So yeah, it's coming on well for us since I've sort of moved on. So yeah. So,
no, I well, first of all, I'd like to say thanks, because I know how much effort goes into this type of stuff, and from a personal community, lure fishing in general, it requires people like yourself to put the effort in, create content, put it out there. Because and it's wicked, and I'm a punter first and foremost because I listen to them all, and so it's an absolute pleasure to be on.
I appreciate you saying that. It means a lot, and we've had some really positive feedback. People saying, "Oh, when's the next episode coming out? What you doing?" And like, really, it's nice, and people are following it, and just really did it because I thought I like listening to this stuff. I think I should create it for other people. So
what's better than fishermen talking about fishing?
Yeah, perfect. So let's get right into it. The first question is always pretty much the same. So how did you get into fishing, and what was that first fish that really captivated you? And I want the whole thing. I want to know where you were, how you caught it, set the scene. I want everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, probably like most guests you have on, it's very vivid. I was 5 years old. I could take you to the exact swim today on the Basingstoke Canal, 5 minutes down the road from where my dad lives, still lives there. I was 5 years old, fishing a little float with a maggot, caught a small stripey, and mate, I don't think any of us as true anglers really know why it captures us. It just does, and for a lot of us it becomes this lifelong passion that to a certain degree chooses us more than we choose it. But very, very vivid memories. My dad took me.
So was your dad an angler? You'd seen tackle in the garage and shown an interest in it, or you'd seen fishermen on the canal and wanted to be part of that?
A little bit of both. Basically, it comes down through the generations. My dad was quite outdoorsy. He was into kind of scouts and, a little bit of survival stuff and camping. And his dad, my granddad, kind of did the same thing. So I think it's just that kind of rite of passage that, I got to that kind of 4.5, 5 years old. You're probably just about safe enough to say to my mum, off we go. Taking him down to the watery environment and see how he gets on, and I never wanted to stop. And every weekend my dad was like, the weather's horrendous, it's raining, it's windy, and I was like, I still just want to go. And he would be like, we probably won't catch anything, and I was like, let's just try. And the more and more we went, and then there's kind of an ongoing joke in my family that my dad still does a little bit of fishing, but like I've just kind of overtaken him and in terms of technical ability and all that type of stuff, and I've done across the whole board now as well. I've done bits of big game fishing with tuna and marlin. I was with Keith Arthur on Sky Sports World Fishing Day.
And we cut to Thom Hunt, and you were out in Madeira.
I think I was in Croatia. And there's a bluefin tuna fishery out there now. They're not as big as the ones we get in the UK. They're only sort of 50-ish kilos, and unfortunately we got blown off that day. We caught a couple of small sharks.
Didn't the top get ripped off, the bimini top?
Well, again, that was me basically saying to the skipper. The skipper was acting my dad that day, saying the weather's horrendous, we can't go out. And me, just like that 5-year-old kid, was saying, I don't care, I want to go out, we have to go out. So eventually we came out of the port, and mate, it was horrendous. It was lumpy as anything. We had to get round this headland to the only bit of quiet water, but just getting round the headland, the top ripped off, and it kind of damaged his boat a bit actually. Anything for the shot.
Yeah, I know it. So going back to your stripey, so it was your first fish was a perch.
Yeah.
And you caught that, float set up, etc.
Yeah.
on Dad's tackle. Where did you go from there? Did you start going on your own? Did you start fishing with a club? How did it progress?
Yeah. So local clubs, Farnham Angling Society, Farnborough, had a number of good waters. There was some carp waters, because you've got to remember back in the day as well, like I'm 41 now, and you're talking like 35 years ago, 30 odd years ago, there actually weren't many carp fisheries back then.
No, there weren't.
You know, but Farnham Angling Society had a couple of, Badshot Lee was one, and they had some small carp in there. Used to go there, got myself got a first pole. It's only like 7 meters long. It weighed an absolute ton. But had a couple of mates that were into it as well. And because my dad used to be able to drop us off and other dads could pick us up, you know, it kind of worked. And to be honest, I think they loved it, you know, going through that. Once they can drop you off and leave you on your own when you're sort of 10, they're just like, off you go, lads. We got up to a load of mischief, you know, all of that stuff, climbing up trees, getting in tangles, but we just loved it, absolutely loved it. Absolutely. It's just being outdoors, like, you know, all these kids. I actually feel sorry for kids nowadays because they get so hooked on all of the electronic stuff, I suppose, to a certain degree, like we all do, but none of that existed back then. And you know, lifting a rock up and finding, you know, woodlice and centipedes and insects and stuff.
And then a big lobworm that you can trot for perch.
Exactly, and you put one on the hook and then bloody one of you catches a tench or something, and it's just like the most mega thing you can think of. So and then I got into match fishing, and I loved that from the junior days. From about sort of 12, 13, started fishing some junior matches, and within a couple of years, I think I was 14 or 15 maybe, and the adult team, so that did winter leagues, they'd sort of spotted my results doing really well at junior level. They drafted me into the adult team, and again, that's a rite of passage, because again, you're sort of like, you know, you've got these guys picking you up in the morning, it all becomes a bit more professional, and it's about having the right floats and preparation, and I'm only...
And the right baits, and like having the squats and the pinkies,
exactly,
and, you know, the caster and the hemp, and depending on the value, the venue, and mixing your ground bait.
And all the tactics as well, you know, and these guys have got loads of experience, you know, are we roach fishing on this canal with bread punch, or are we looking for a bonus bream or something with worms? So it really kind of developed my kind of angling brain. And I think that really set the scene. And as a beautiful memory, I still remember the first ever adult winter league I fished when I was 15 years old.
Right.
I won my section.
Nice.
It was on the Basingstoke Canal, and I thought to myself, bloody hell. I just, you know, there's times when you're a kid and you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure I'm up to this, I don't know anyone, and you're hanging out in a pub afterwards with all these guys, you know, there's like...
So set the scene on this winter league that you won your section.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it like depths of winter, like really cold?
Yeah, I think it was...
What was the score? How did you think it was going to pan out? What species were you looking at fishing for to make the weight up, and what tactics did you have, like a short inside?
Mate, I can tell you absolutely
go on, far
every
away.
detail. I can tell you the exact peg I drew at. It was on the Basingstoke Canal, and at this stage, because I had a bike, I knew the Basingstoke Canal's like multiple miles long. I knew most of it like the back of my hand, and I drew an area that wasn't right in my back garden, but I knew it pretty well. I knew the species, roach, perch, skimmers, that type of stuff, and I fished an inside line with a whip direct, and I somehow managed to catch a perch that was over a pound. And when you've got no elastic, there's no stretch, it was like, oh, I thought it was going to break me at one point. I managed to get it in. I caught a few caster roach up the shelf, some nice little sort of chunky, like 4 to 6 ounce ones, and I had a squat line down the middle with ground bait, and caught a little bit of mixture of everything. I had £4.15, won my section by over a pound in the end, so I didn't even need that perch. But
nice.
Mate, I remember it vividly. The guy next to me fished squats all day, and he had £1.15, and he came up to me after and said, how did you get them? And it was just total intuition. There was a bit of a team plan, but I think one of the great things was and again, this comes through to my team fishing now with Team England and whatever, and fishing with Kev that I'm sure we'll get onto. There's a plan in place, but then you have to relax on your own intuition, you've got to sniff it out yourself. Trust your gut. If you go too stiff on a plan and it changes on the day, it just doesn't, you
have to be able to adapt.
Exactly.
And you have to agree on that particular adaptation. I'm the same in Holland with my teammate, and we listen to each other.
Yeah.
And we do say, right, I understand where you come from, but I think we should do this because of this reason. Yeah. And sometimes Jan will be like, no, 100%, yeah, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And then other times he'll be like, no, I know that's not going to work. Right. I get where you're coming from, but I know it's not going to work. So let's go. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll go with that.
And you've got to trust each other.
Yeah.
And I had that straight from the get-go with the adult team, that they trusted me enough to not give me, because later on when we started going up into Drennan Super Leagues, which was the summer league in around our area, and then we had the Avon Valley Winter League, and we won our Avon Valley Winter League a number of times, and then you go into Winter League finals and stuff like that, and even from quite an early age, I had that real hunger for reasonable level, fishing nationals where there's 70 or 80 teams. Coming home with medals from nationals and stuff like that, and when you're fortunate enough to kind of maybe I was lucky enough to be in the right area, I was lucky enough to join the right club, I was lucky enough to get a few results, then get spotted, then get drafted into a team. There is a certain amount of luck with that, but then once you taste a bit of a win on quite a high level with Winter League finals and nationals and stuff like that, mate, I haven't lost that ever since. I'm so hungry for the win, I
know the feeling, and
it's just magic. I actually sort of struggle to go pleasure fishing these days, unless I'm either practicing or I like my tournament fishing, because it's so high octane for me now. The pleasure fishing just doesn't quite do it for me anymore.
But you just get that added buzz, don't you, with that added pressure, and the calibre of people you're competing against. When you're fishing, you're always competing against the other person in the boat. So whether it's you and Kev or it's me, you're always got that, haven't you? You're always trying to. If you and I were fishing and I came back and you'd had 20 and I had 19, I'd be like, not happy. Thom did me. Do you know what I mean? And it would be exactly the same the other way round. You just you don't have to sort of brag about everything, but you need to feel that edge for yourself. I did my bit, you know, and I did fish better than.
I also think there's an interesting kind of life lesson in that competition thing, because I don't really, there's like a bit of a culture. Every kid gets a medal today. And I actually think that learning to win, but also more importantly, learning to lose, it's good for the soul. It brings you back down again, mate. As
we're not all equal.
As good as we think we are as well, like you can be, the flavour of the month, and you've won a few on the trot, mate. It only takes a couple of howlers, and then you're rock bottom again, and you've got to wear it. And there's a skill in being able to pick yourself up again.
But you've got to be zero to go to hero.
That
absolutely. Is very important.
That
is a massive dynamic that has to be there. So you've done all your Winter League fishing and that. What then moved you towards the lure fishing? What was your first sort of inspiration, or why did you want to get into it? What brought you into the lure fishing side and away from the match fishing?
Match fishing was super big for me, but I was always interested to learn about and experience other types of fishing. So a bit like the big game fishing, I've tried bits of that.
Okay,
I actually I had a period where I got into my fly fishing for trout as well.
Okay.
And I kind of felt like I was learning at each stage, and they were all adding micro blocks to the foundation of, my angling career, my angling brain, because it's a lifelong pursuit. And so I tried bits of lure fishing in my younger years, had bits of success, but then it was just I was an all-round angler. I'd do a little bit of barbel fishing occasionally, a little bit of night fishing for carp, and a bit of sea fishing if we were on the coast, and a little bit of everything. So I tasted the lure fishing from the start, but it was way back in the day when it was like, mate, you'd go into a tackle shop and there'd be an Abu high-low, some Mep spinners, maybe a couple of Rapala lures on the wall.
Couple of big S's maybe.
Exactly, exactly that type of thing. Not like we've got today. And so it didn't really capture me, but then, you know, going sort of round the houses, it was probably, I don't know, maybe 12 years or so ago now, I really sort of picked it up and got back into it. And it was really then learning more about all those predatory fish, which was quite new for me and in new techniques, and then adding that to my tournament and competition hungry background, putting them together, and that's where we are now, you know, and that's what I love, and, you know, never say never.
With the predator stuff, where did you how did you learn that? Where did you do that? Did you do that on the canals again, or were you doing it on the reservoirs? Where did you sort of start your very basic learning of, like, you know, jig, spinner, crankbait?
Yeah, all bank fishing.
Yeah.
And anything you could get. So winter time, odd lakes when they weren't busy with carp, odd gravel pits around sort of the Hampshire, Reading, M4 corridor area.
Okay.
Can be quite good. They're clear in the winter. There's not too much weeds. There's good pike stocks, and the carp anglers aren't there so much.
Yeah.
The canals, so everything from the Midlands canals where you've got chocolate coloured water through to Kennet and Avon, Basingstoke, some of those types of canals.
So predominantly started off on pike and perch, and then built towards the Xander. You were keen to sort of venture and find those, what they were sort of alien fish back then, weren't they? We didn't have that many of them.
Yeah, probably only, I reckon 7 or 8 years ago was probably my first Xander, with Mike Maguire, good friend of yours as well. He took me on the Midlands canals and said, mate, the Xander fishing's great, catching, you know, 3, 4, 5, 8 in a day, and they're really, and I was like, bloody hell. And then I went to Berry Hill and caught a few from Berry Hill.
But that would have been on bait?
Bit of both actually, but mostly on bait. Little sections of roach and stuff, but then the bait fishing just doesn't do it for me now.
For me either. I'm completely into my lure fishing, as you know. So you've done that. So you've built up, and you've still hunger for the competition background and bits and pieces. At what point in all of this did you transition into, like, sponsorship, for example? Because initially you were with Gunky, from my recollections.
Yeah, that's right.
At what point did you then get into the whole sort of sponsored angler type thing, and how did that come apart? Because that must have been in Frederick Julian's day.
It was,
and who was the other guy? The Yannick. Is it Yannick?
Yannick, he's still there.
He's got that really
as far as I
beard.
know. Yes, and Simon Torenbeek as well, who's at Abu now. He was there, and mate, they were brilliant days.
So how did that transpire? Did they approach you? Were you hungry, and did you go after it like we did back in the day? Because it felt to me, when back in the day, those people that were getting those sponsorship deals, that felt like the way that I wanted to go, and I felt that I needed that, and I felt that would make me at the time. Was it the same for you? Did you sort of approach them, or
not so much with that one? Because the irony is, with Westin, it was slightly the other way round. But basically, through my local tackle shop in Fleet on the Basingstoke Canal, because I was always going back there in the winter, and that was my first ever job, a Saturday boy in that tackle shop. So every time I'd go back to see my dad, my brother, everyone, friends that lived in that area, I'd always go into the tackle shop, always have a cup of tea, mate. It is one of those classic independent, smelly maggot shed out the back. You know, and mixture of kind of guns, shooting, clothing.
So who's that? What tackle shop is this?
That's called Tackle Up. Tackle Up in Fleet. And like just a medium-sized sort of independent one. And back in the day, that was the match fishing. That had a really good match fishing vibe to it. We did really good bait, that type of stuff. So every time I would go back to the shop, I always noticed that their lure wall was kind of growing quite a bit, and they stocked Gunky, and I started using a few of their bits, and used to always chat to the shop owner, and basically Gunky were kind of looking for someone that was kind of young, had the right look, because the brand is quite edgy, a bit street fishing, and they were kind of looking for someone. And this guy said, "Mate, my mate Thom is absolutely nuts on his predator fishing. He uses some of your kit anyway. He's really good. He's just started doing a few comps and starting to do okay. Like, give him a buzz." So I got a random call out of nowhere, and basically they chatted it through, and you have like a little 3-month period or whatever, and produce a bit of content for them. And because I had a little bit of presenting and TV background, a bit like yourself, you know, that's another thing that you add on top of, you know, the sponsored angler. It's another string to your bow. And I think there's probably might be a lot of kids or a lot of people at home thinking about that sponsorship thing. And it's not just about being a good angler. You've got to be a good angler. You've got to understand media. You've got to understand, like, maybe taking a photo, presenting a video, little bit of product, bits about products and materials. There's a lot of different strings to the bow. And if people think, oh, I'm a good angler, I could be a sponsored angler. It's not just about that.
No,
there's a much bigger game that you have to play if you want to be in that world. You know, so that's how it happened. And mate, those Gunky days for sort of 2 or 3 years were absolutely brilliant. We used to go over to France, and Fred is still a good friend of mine, and you know, he's a real character. Still catch up with him every few months, and we're chatting away about all sorts of stuff, and just love it. And then it moved on to Gunky and Census in particular, which was where Gunky was kind of wrapped up with 2 or 3 brands. That got sold, and it just lost the vibe. Fred left, Simon left. It just
still pretty strong from the point of view of the Gunky Ilex. I mean, I see a lot of the guys out in Germany, so like Mark Petrovsky, Thomas Engart, always ranking really high. Phenomenal anglers, very, very talented. And I think that they're definitely still a strong brand. They've got some really good anglers behind them,
and some great products too. And it just lost the vibe for me, probably in the UK a little bit, and they shifted around business wise, and I just decided it was just time to hand my hat in, and kind of move on. And then I was, you know, on
did you basically at that point you'd made a clean break, had you, and you had no sponsors? You
no sponsors.
Thanks, Gunky. No hard feelings, but I'm just gonna do my own thing for a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And still wanted to be in that brand space, because I think my main goal was representing my country, fishing on the world stage, and I knew that if I really wanted to get there, being associated with a quality brand helps. It helps with opportunities. It helps with contacts all around the world. Mate, you're a brilliant example. You've been going over to Europe for so many years now. Your list of contacts is invaluable.
It's taken a long time to build, to be fair.
Exactly, and sometimes you need like little periods with a little brand here, and you make some mates, and then you can stay mates with them, and maybe you do, you know, so you've got whatever it is with your engines or your boat stuff, or any of your different associations really help with your network. And so I knew that had to be part of my strategy, and when I started thinking about it, Westin was just my number one choice.
Westin were taking it by that point. They were taking it by storm. I remember seeing I'm going to murder his name, so I'll let you do it. Jorgen.
Yeah, Jorgen
Larsen.
Yeah.
So I remember seeing him catching these massive perch. I remember vividly the big Xander doing the vertical stuff with the original baits that had like the head shape cut out. Twinties in like the bass orange. I still got some. And they had made those lovely heads. The stuff that Westin were producing was just the next level above everybody else. They just set the bar, really, didn't they, for lure making and just quality. You also had at that stage Fox Rage coming on, which a phenomenal brand. They were doing really nice stuff, but it was almost like you needed to buy into one club or the other. You had the Fox Rage jacket with all the luggage, with the rods, with all the lures, the fish snacks. That was the old packaging of the things, and the boxes. All of that stuff was just so iconic, and I got completely dragged down the Fox. At one point, I had to have everything.
You end up being quite brand loyal.
Yeah, you do. You want everything, and it's like you just had to have all. But that's no different than the carp anglers, and I think whoever did that in Fox was very clever in the way they do it. I don't know if it was or it wasn't, but I think Julian Chidgey was very instrumental in some of that stuff that he did. And a good friend of mine was Andy Crossley back in the day, who caught loads of big perch on the Lee and rivers like that, and I got completely sucked into that because those people, I admired them and I looked up to them, and I was like, right, I want all of those baits that they're using, and I want those boxes, and I want that bag, and I want those rods, and I want a Fox Rage hat, and I want just no different than you in Westin. But I think Westin were right there, and they were bringing some phenomenal product in, and they were catching some amazing fish. And it was just perfect marketing.
Yeah, I think the quality is something that they put that really aligns with me personally as well. Obviously now going from sponsored angler to then all the way through the ranks now to being a full-time employee is absolutely brilliant. And again, that was kind of part of my very pregnant wife upstairs was basically saying to me, you go fishing a lot. Are you ever going to earn any money out of this? So that kind of almost teased me a little bit to be like, there ain't many opportunities, and I feel like I might be able to sneak my way in if I work hard. So, put a lot of time and effort in before you get paid, and then those opportunities arise. But quality brand.
How did the Westin gig transpire then? What happened? Who phoned you? Set the scene. What was it? And what was the conversation like?
Ironically, it was actually the other way around. So Gunky approached me when I sort of felt like wasn't really a big name. It had a lot of potential, but they'd approached me and it figured itself out. Back then, I had previously met at the big one, Luke Coppens, who's Westin through and through. Had been over and he'd come up to me, and I was giving a presentation for Gunky at the lure tank type thing, and he said I think he noticed something in me he was like, this kid could be quite good.
I think I heard the story from a completely different angle, and I don't know who it was that told me, but I remember them saying that at that particular show people were coming up to the lure tank and they were doing their demo or whatever it was for their brand, and they were chucking a few lures, and I think Luke must have been on a stand with maybe the lure box. It
was, lure box with Barry,
and with Barry Lynch. And I think from the story that I was told, Luke kept looking across at the tank. People would come up, do their thing, he'd carry on talking, look at the tank, somebody would come up, do their thing. You came up, and I think instantly a load of people came round.
Yeah.
And then you started interacting with them and talking to them and demonstrating that. And Luke at that point stopped doing whatever he was doing on the stand and went over and listened.
Yeah.
And I think from what I heard, which is that exact moment that you're describing, I heard on the grapevine coming down to me, this is what happened.
Well, he then approached me after I'd sort of finished doing some demonstrations and sort of in like, what the guys from Holland and Benelux area, they're so amazingly like polite, and they're just lovely people to be around. He came up to me and he sort of looked at me with a little sort of cheeky look in his eye, and he said, are you happy at Gunky? And I said to him at the time, I was like, yeah, I am actually. It was going really well at the time. But then he basically just said, if that ever changes, you give me a call.
Yeah.
And then sort of fast forward, I left Gunky and whatever, and I was sort of doing my own thing for a bit. And because people in the UK knew that I'd left Gunky, I had a number of offers from a few different brands, and I had a few conversations, and there were some really, really good deals on the table.
Yeah, it's always worth having those conversations.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, even if you think, I'm not going to go to this, always have the conversation.
Yeah.
That's very important to any young anglers, whoever, even older anglers. always listen to these people.
Yeah.
Just see what they got to say.
Exactly.
It's not going to cost you anything.
Yeah.
It's just polite to sit down and hear what somebody's offering.
And I think you never know what bridge you're building at the time that you might need at a later date.
Yeah.
You know, so like that weekend with Luke, even though I was with Gunky, I can't see the stars. You know,
Yeah.
can't read the tea leaves. Never knew what was going to happen. But then when an opportunity comes round, I'd had that conversation with him, and I dropped him a message. So I'd had a load of people coming at me, and I said, look, I don't want to sort of like, you know, because it's a bit odd. It is a bit odd going knock, knock, knock. Can you invite me in for dinner? Do you know what I mean? You're kind of inviting yourself round a little bit. And he was like, oh, no, this is good. This is good. And we tried working a bit of a deal out. And to be honest, it was like, at the time, it was like less than half what I was being offered by other brands. But I just knew it was the right move to make. With the right company, I wanted to be with them. And I was hoping that they would see the value in me. And mate, you know, like... It's just been... I now can't see a good reason. Never say never, but I can't see another reason that I would ever be with another brand. Because it's the people as well. You know, all of the people.
And they've got the whole package, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's not just baits, it's rods. And the rods are good rods.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, the baits are good baits. And the whole terminal tackle range, the luggage, the clothing. Yeah, it's just... Yeah.
It's really good quality, and they support me a huge amount. And more than anything... You end up making friends, and every time I go over to Denmark, go to HQ, mate, there's just a buzz. It takes me back to, you know, like just those exciting fishing moments.
Yeah.
You know, when you're like, oh, this is great, and maybe you try a different style of fishing. Like they took me out sea trout fishing, and I'd never really done that. And you're using like 10-foot floppy, because they use really parabolic rods.
Yeah.
And really thin braid, and you've got to luzz it to the horizon and fish it really quick. And so it's lure fishing, but like not as we know it, really. But I was out there, and it was bloody like December. It was freezing cold, and we're stood like up to our balls in icy cold coastal water. Caught my first sea trout, mate. It was about a pound and a bit. And it just took me back to that perch and being 5 again, being a kid.
It does.
You know?
It's those memories and in that different environment. And that's what I'm about, like painting a picture. You're saying, you know, you're up to your waist in freezing water, you know, you're throwing it to the horizon. And I'm sure you can remember, like, the scenery and how cool it was. And that's what we fish for, memories.
Oh, mate, exactly. And making those memories with the right people, you know, is wow, it's the beautiful part of life, you know. So yeah, like just a mega company to be part of, and you know what. So you went
in, or spoke to Luke, didn't quite get the deal that you wanted to get, but that's now transpired into much more of a role. And how has that gone? So describe from that point that you were at when you joined the team and started to build to where you are now as a full-time employee of Westin. And your UK sales representative, doing a bit in the media side of things. You're telling us. Tell us how that's gone and where you're at now.
So basically, I said to them, and I partly said to Westin, I partly said to my wife, and I partly said to myself, I'm taking on a sponsorship deal here. I need something to materialise out of this. As in, with some money, some sort of role.
That Facebook likes do not pay mortgages.
Exactly. And I knew that I had to try and turn it into a financial opportunity. And I said sort of 12 to 18 months. I've got 12 to 18 months to work my arse off, prove to them that I'm valuable enough, and that they want to be like, you know, this kid should be part of the team. I did that. COVID came around, and we were kind of like, I was having conversations with Westin at HQ, and I said, look, you know, are there any opportunities coming up and whatever? And COVID kicked in, so it wasn't perfect timing. But then a rival brand came along and had seen, like, in that sort of, I've had a very, very fortunate sort of like 6 years or so in the tournament scene in the UK. And they'd seen that I was good on camera, that I could take a reasonable photo. I caught good fish, and I was up there in the tournament placings. Which gives you that credibility, so that there's plenty of people out there now that are kind of YouTube stars, and they might not profess to be the best anglers. They give some good entertainment and that type of stuff, but they don't necessarily have the authority to sell product, which is kind of where the rubber hits the road with a brand if you're looking to try and get paid. And so I felt like I had that kind of credibility, and this rival brand came along, no names mentioned.
No.
And I'm still actually quite good friends with some of those guys in that brand. And they basically offered me a full-time job to take on and be head of the UK for them, and in the media, marketing, videos, all that type of stuff. So I went back to Westin, and I said, look, I've got a young lad, I've got a wife pecking me slightly. I cannot turn that offer down. I don't want to take it, but I'm really going to struggle as a dad and a husband to turn that money down. And basically, the conversation was with the marketing manager. He said to me, the CEO's in a meeting. As soon as he comes out of that meeting, I'm going to drag him into my office, and I will call you back with a deal in no more than 2 hours. And I was like, okay, this sounds encouraging. And mate, the phone went after an hour and a half, and they said, we don't know what we can offer you yet, but you're not going anywhere, and we're going to figure it out. And I was like, that's perfect. It's what I wanted to hear, because I didn't want to go anywhere.
No. So sometimes it takes that somebody else sniffing around, doesn't it? For
a
you
nudge.
To,
And like it was very fortunate. They then basically pulled together like a bit of an amalgamated package, and I'm amazingly grateful to the guys still, because it was like they were like, right, we can find a bit out of marketing budget, a bit out of sales budget, a bit out of this, a bit out of commission, a bit out of like, and they kind of pulled this thing together.
Create a role for you.
Yeah, exactly. And then that lasted for like a year and a half or so. Things have been growing really well for us with Westin, and we've got some serious sort of targets for the UK market as well, in both freshwater and saltwater. And pretty quickly it's progressed, and they said, look, you're natural in a marketing role. So I've now gone pretty much full-time marketing. I still do small associate bits with sales and stuff, but it's heavily marketing now. And then other sales agents have been brought in to do, be on the road and visit the shops and do that type of stuff.
Cool. And so as part of this, so at what stage of this did you then appear on Xander Pro?
So we were about...
So at what stage were we at? When did you feature in Xander Pro?
Oh, crikey, I actually filmed it, because, again, the guys back at home probably don't know, that I think Xander Pro gets filmed almost a year before.
Yeah, it was the same when I filmed Perch Pro. It was like in the summer, it was a theoretical summer, but in the summer before. So.
And it doesn't come out for a full year. So, crikey, I'm trying to remember now. I think we must have filmed it in November 21.
Wasn't it? It was after COVID, for sure.
Yeah. November 21, and then I think it came out in sort of October, November 22.
Yeah, so what was your role in Westin at that point?
I think I was still in the mismatch of like everything, but again, I had said to them, just give me an opportunity. I want to get my notoriety up. I want to get my personal brand up. I feel like it helps me, it helps you, it helps the UK. When we've got UK representation on these big YouTube productions, it then starts putting the UK on the map a little bit more, and they start taking us a bit more seriously, and then the UK starts feeling like it's something, instead of being like it's a carp fishing country that only does.
If you look at it as an analogy, it's no different than us watching the Bass Pro Tour and thinking, we'd love to be part of that. I'd really like, and we never will be. But then you sort of see the World Predator Classic or something like that, and you think,
it's not a million miles away.
I feel a little bit like I'm part of it.
Yeah,
I think that's the same for the UK people watching Canal Gratis, watching Hector Barsh doing their YPC boat, whatever it is. Yeah. If there's people representing the UK in those competitions, I think the UK anglers feel, I'm not a million miles away from this, actually.
Absolutely.
If he can do it, there's no reason why I can't do it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's good.
And as our market's growing, so, statistically with I suppose, dollar signs, that part of the, carp fishing's massive, 50+% of fishing in the UK. Lure fishing still only probably accounting around 5% in freshwater, plus a bit of saltwater stuff.
What's the growth rate for the lure? Talk us through that.
It's solid. It's probably one of the only... Angling in numbers overall is coming down. Lure fishing is one of the only categories that's going up. And like I said, rewind not even 10 years ago, but let's say 10 years ago, how much wall space did an average shop dedicate to lure? It didn't.
No.
A metre?
Yeah.
Maybe, of a few mixed things and a couple of snap swivels and a few wire traces. Now, your average shop that you're going into is stocking between 4 and 10 brands, and they've got a few meters. Like, that's all you need to know, and it's getting more and more all the time. So, the saltwater thing is interesting me a lot at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Mostly because there's no real competitions through that kind of June, July, Augusty kind of period in the UK.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to flirt with something a bit new, something a bit different, learning stuff again, and it just keeps you hungry.
It's there, isn't it? When you're not doing,
So that's really interesting for us in that market. And then the freshwater market as well, I've designed a custom colour range that comes out at Christmas. We've got, various different kind of UK specific product design in the pipeline now. And our pipe funnel is, for product development, it's like over 24 months now. So we, to a certain degree, have an idea of what's coming out, 2 years down the line.
Nice.
Which is, we're really...
got some good foresight.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's because the company is like taking advantage of all of its brand values, getting known for quality, getting known for association with all of your Luke Coppens, Jorgens, in Germany's a massive market for us. France is a good market for us. UK's growing. Scandinavia, as a premium brand, we're number one in Scandinavia, but they're happy and they're rich over there is how I generally describe them. It's quite unusual to have, I kind of describe Westin as like the Mercedes, maybe. They're not Ferrari.
No.
But like they're a solid premium brand, and to be...
It's high quality and it's reliable.
Yeah, exactly. So, mate, I'm loving it. I'm really loving it.
I think from being in the industry a little bit, in the tackle industry side of things, I think from what I understand from dealerships and that, you're very well set up with your B2B websites.
Yes.
So B2B is basically trade, wholesale to trade in effect.
Yeah.
So I think you've made it very easy, and I would use the analogy of Marks and Spencer's in a garage.
Yeah.
People will buy that sandwich, even though it's loads more money than the co-op, but because they can go into the garage and they're lazy and they've parked at the pump and they've walked past the sandwiches on the way to the till.
And they know it's quality. And
they'll just take it.
Yeah.
And I think the way that your website, your trade stuff, to your wholesale to the trade sets up, people can go on there and it's super easy. So people are like, it's easy to order from Westin, so we just get a big Westin order in, do it, and it's popular, and people like it, and the brand's diverse, and it's people are just doing it, and that's where I see you're doing well with the market share.
Yeah, very much so. We invest a huge amount into our back end systems. An average punter will never see, but like the Brexit thing hurt us a lot. Because being based in Denmark, that kind of like EU to non-EU has been an absolute headache. We are over all of that now, and we did sort of plateau for a little bit for a couple of years when we were expecting really good growth still, but we're kind of back on track now. And yeah, we invest heavily in updating websites, product development, shipping, and trying to get everything as good as possible. We don't just want a great lure rod and a great soft plastic and a great crankbait or whatever. You've got to have a great business as well. You've got to have the right people, the right systems, all of that type of stuff. And that's really what I do love being part of the company, because that aligns with, I want to be the best. That might sound a bit much to some people, or it might sound a bit arrogant or over the top. But I do. It's just my natural personality. I want to win. I want to win in business. I want to win in life. I want to win in tournaments. It's who I am, and that's what Westin want to do as well. So it's very cool being around people.
And they're aligned in the right people, aren't they? It's like surround yourself with good people. Good things happen.
Exactly. Yeah, and mate, they're still hungry for it.
Yeah.
You get some of these businesses get bought out with these, American kind of like big umbrella. They own 15 or 20 different brands. You go into the offices of those and people have lost the love. They've lost the love because it's turned into an American spreadsheet, and it's turned into, you've got to hit everything on Q1, Q2. At Westin, we've still got the love for it. We're still mostly just passionate anglers. Mate, you should see us when we have these team get together and everyone flies over into Denmark, and we have a bit of a jolly for a few days, sort of once a year, and we have product meetings and all that sort of stuff. It is just a bunch of guys who can't stop talking about lure fishing and their stories and their product, and what about this, and I'm thinking about this, and what do you think about that? Mate, it's just people that are just nuts passionate about it. So it's wicked. It really is.
So flipping back on to Xander Pro, how did you find that?
I enjoyed it. As a true tournament angler, which I am, it isn't a true tournament, because you can't have a true tournament when everyone is some people are in Holland, we were in Finland, other people are in Spain. There's a huge section of it which is just entertainment, and that's fine, but it's kind of under the tournament kind of theme, which kind of adds a little bit of an extra edge maybe, but like it's not the same as like being everyone's on the herring fleet and the Volgarak or whatever for WPC. That is a treat. Everyone's in the same place, dealing with the same conditions.
You've chosen your arena, haven't you? In that, like in Perch Pro, if you've chosen Holland, you're going to have to deal with high winds, etc. It's.
But when everyone's on the same venue, that for me is the true. And I think we still haven't nailed this yet, and for any of the production companies like, your Hector Barsh and like you said, with your Canal Gratis and Free Water Pictures, there is one thing that is glaringly obvious to me that's missing, and that is the studio and the production quality of having a presenter. Mate, you watch Bass, whether it's like the Elite Series or it's MLF or any of those
Mark
ones.
Zona producing it and all of that. But that's a little bit like the WPC. I think this year it lacked the presentation and the sort of storytelling that we used to see from Andy Ford.
Yes,
because he would tell you what was going on and that this team was at the top and if they did this, and I think that cutting, he is almost like the UK's Mark Zona, isn't he?
Well, that's what you need, because you need a professional that holds the thread through the entire show, and that's what turns it. And I've used this analogy before, but that's what turns it. It's the difference between watching your local side play football down the park and you watch Sky Sports, where they've got a screen and they rewind and they analyse, and they've got ex-players that have got 30 years of experience of, playing football and being in the back room, and they've got their own stories and they're complete experts, and you're getting multi-layered entertainment at the highest level. And that for me is just like, basically the Canal Gratis and other ones are too much boat to boat with a little bit of voiceover, and it's just thin. The entertainment for me is just a little bit thin, and it would absolutely go stratospheric if you had 2 or 3. Mate, you would probably be a very good person to try and present that, because you understand the tournament side of it. You understand, when Mark Zoner is going, right, we're now going to go and watch Ish Munro top water frogs, and he's absolutely amazing. And then Ish Munro comes out and he's like smashing 5-pounders. And now we're going to go and watch KVD, and there's some graphic that comes up where he's fishing a 10XD, 23 foot deep, and he's digging into the bottom, and then he catches an 8-pounder. And like, it's just like, that is a hell of a show to watch.
But the production cost on that must be unbelievable.
It is, yeah.
You look at how much, when I went into Perch Pro, entering Perch Pro was 20 grand down.
Yeah.
Straight up, you got to put 20 grand down.
Yeah.
There's no prize. They're not covering your accommodation. They're not covering your fuel. They're not covering your food. They're not covering the travel to the country. That's 20 grand just to feature on that show.
Yeah.
And nothing else. And there's no prize.
It's just what do you think? Go on, guesstimate for me, because I've got a figure in my head as well. Guesstimate what you think it costs a brand to because when you take in all your consideration of costs, fuels, lodges, whatever, the whole cost to be in that production, it's got to be 30 plus.
Oh yeah, easy. You're going to lose 40 grand in a heartbeat,
mate. It's
But you think about what you're saying, and how much cameramen cost, and how much a production team costs, and how much a presenter costs, and all of that to do that. It's just. But I mean, it costs people. I think the Bass Pro Tour now, I was talking to a mate, Oliver Nye, and I think he said he had to get in sponsor fees, so in cold hard cash from a sponsor. So if I was going to Westin, going to fish the Bass Pro Tour, I know for a fact I'm going to need 80 grand a year just to break even.
Yeah. That is, it adds up.
And that's with their fuel over there, that it costs you about 15 quid to fill your truck up.
Yeah. I know it is, but I know we're getting close to this, and for me, it's going to be who moves first. Which one of these production companies moves first? And the reason that I think we're pretty close is because, mate, it started with Fly versus Jerk, that's in like season 14 or something.
At least, yeah.
How many are there now? There must be 10 or 15 of these. Like, I can't keep up with them, and I like watching them.
Yeah.
You've got all of your like.
Well, Hector and Barsh are doing YPC Bank. They've just done YPC Bank UK.
Yeah. YPC Boat. There's 3.
Yeah. So then YPC Bank, YPC Boat.
Then you've got Perch Pro, Xander Pro,
Fly versus Jerk.
Then you've got ELF.
Yes,
then
European Fishing League. Yeah,
there's Freewater do another one as well called Predator Fight.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them that are branded under the fights, aren't they? Predator Fight. And
Pike Fight, Perch Fight, yeah.
So there you go, we're at 10. And then there's a couple of the smaller, because I know there's a couple that come out of Finland.
Well, we had Daniel Adriani on the podcast.
Yeah.
I spoke to him, and from recollection, Ben will correct me if I'm wrong, I think he has 7 full-time cameramen.
Yeah.
Working for him.
Yeah.
So when they're not filming, they're editing.
Yeah.
That's 7 full-time people just to be on those 3 shows.
Well, the clever bit, and I'll give Daniel his due, because I really like Daniel, and he's an interesting character as well. But I like how he's basically gone balls deep on media, on video media. With Hector Barsh, with LMAB, and they've got the luxury of doing that because they're quite a new brand. When you've got an older historical brand, it's a big ship that takes a long time to turn. When you're coming into the scene and you're designing some lures and you're getting off the market, they're very nimble, they're very agile, and they've basically pumped like 98% of their budget into video, and I can see them getting some good results from that as well. So fair play to them. It's but it's a modern world, and that's kind of where you need to be at, you know.
So where are you seeing yourself going now? You've got to this point in, what's your job title at Westin now?
So UK marketing manager.
Okay.
So we've got a number of guys on the team, and then that's kind of growing, because my job is to find the right people to grow, and that's not an easy thing. We've got part of my job is, you know, working with tackle companies and retailers that are also big enough to have some of their own like media out, because they're trying to push themselves amongst anyone else as well. So I work closely with a few of those, and a little bit product design in there as well, which is really good fun. But anything media, and then I'm still so I'm behind the scenes, and then I'm still trying to do, like this morning I was out filming sort of vloggy style stuff that I can then send over and gets edited, and you know, that type of thing as well. So it's a fantastic.
So where do you see yourself going? You're in the England team.
Yeah.
You just come back from fishing in.
So it's every October. I was captain last year, captain again this year, and again that's something I take really. I'm super proud of that. I'm super excited, and you know, it's a very. When I was 5 years old catching that first perch, when you start reading Angler's Mail, you start reading the match reports, you get into that competition side, and you start seeing England teams, you start seeing your Bob Nudds and Alan Scott Horns and all of those guys, and you're a kid and you dream of fishing for your country one day, and that happened for me last year, and We don't have the greatest record. It's a project. It's a number of it's going to take a number of years, but I do feel like everyone says, oh, the UK, they're so far behind Scandinavia, they're so far behind Eastern Europeans. Yes and no, mate. When I'm stood on that podium, we won't be that far behind then, and it's happening. You know. It is a slow burner, but it's the creep is happening, and
I think we've got some really good anglers now.
Yeah,
really good anglers. I mean, yourself and Kev, you've done amazingly well in some of the competitions in the UK and that. Yeah. You've got the goods. You just need the experience on these other waters. But I mean, some of those waters that you're going and look at. Where's the next tournament? It's in
Latvia. So it's Czech Republic last.
And how big? It's over 2 lakes and 1 river.
No, it's you would not believe, because I actually measured it on Google Maps, right? Last year, it was on a place called Slappy in Czech Republic.
Yeah.
This venue is 500 metres wide, obviously there are shallower bits close to the edge, but 100 to 150 foot deep in the middle, and it was 21 miles long. That's a pretty big venue. That was last year.
Okay.
This year, and we thought that was a big venue compared to whatever you get in the UK. This year, there's 2 main rivers in Latvia, the Riga system. So the main river, it's nearly 1 kilometre wide, and that's 20 miles long, that section. There's an arm that comes off that, which is about 300 metres wide, and that's 25 miles long. And then there's an arm that comes off the other side that goes to a chain of 3 lakes, and the smallest one is the size of Rutland.
How can you possibly be expected to go there and do your homework and find the spots? I mean, I've just come back off of Hurringfleet. I put the video up on my YouTube channel of doing the WPC practice, and I practiced there for 5 days. And I know I hadn't even really scratched the surface, but I found a few places that I felt confident in.
Yeah. I don't know is the answer. And to a certain degree, it's a long way away, this one. For the first one last year, it was a completely brand new team. And we felt a lot of pressure because no one wants to look like an idiot. And we actually worked out, it's done over 3 days now.
Yeah.
And we worked our way up the rankings. So out of 17 or 18 teams, our first day was 12, our second day was 9, and the third and final day we finished 4th.
Right. So, and then it's those combined points.
Overall,
so 12 plus 9 plus...
Kind of,
and
yeah.
That total added together
and
gives you the number of where you rank.
Yeah, and we came 9th overall. Yeah. And out of 17, a lot of people would say, well, that's not that great, mid-table.
It's not bad.
But for us, the way the team worked together on a style of venue that is... So it's basically that one was an old glacial reservoir. And I spoke to the French team, and me and Kev went over for 3 days before the official practice, and we were looking around thinking, mate, it's 100 foot deep here. And sometimes you could virtually touch the bank with your rod and you're in 90 or 100 foot of water. We're driving up 20 odd miles and we didn't even know where to start. When I spoke to one of the French guys, he was like, I grew up on a venue like this in France. This is a glacial ravine.
Yeah.
I know roughly what to look for. I was like, I don't know what to bloody look for. Mate, it took us 3 days to just start figuring out like what areas to look for and that type of thing. So you're just adding to experience. But mid-table for us and finishing that last day, coming fourth out of 17 teams on the world stage, gave us that glimmer of being like, we can compete. We can, on the right day, with a bit more knowledge, a bit more gelling of the team, a bit more experience, a bit more contacts. This is a 5 to 10 year project. But on that final day of our first, get together as the new team, that first World Championships, I was like, a fourth. If we had started what we knew, we'd learnt so much across those few days of the actual comp, which really told me that we hadn't done enough practice. But everyone's limited by money and time and everything. If we knew what we knew on that final day at the beginning of the World Champs, I don't think we'd have podiumed, but we'd have potentially been top 5 or top 6.
Nice.
And that made me think, shit, we're not a million miles away. Yeah, and when you've got a fighting chance and you think every year this is going to grow and get stronger, that was a really, really cool moment for the team. So this year, it's a bloody long way away. It's a 30-hour drive once you get over the tunnel. Again, it's a massive venue. We're doing our homework as much as we can, but we've kind of just decided for this year, let's go and enjoy it. Let's bond. We won't have that first year pressure on us. We're not too worried. We'll figure a few things out, but this one is going into the experience, bracket. And next year, I believe it's going to be Ireland.
Oh, right.
Much closer to home, British waters, perch and pike exclusively. We've got a little bit of experience with some comps over in Ireland, and that makes me think that could be interesting. So, we're taking it each with and again, more of it is the UK domestic scene is very, very cool. There's some very cool, and the competition levels are getting bigger. But really, for Kev and me in particular, we need to be it's Holland. Holland is the place. We've got to be getting across to Holland now.
Because you fish WPC, the next edition?
But, mate, I've got a baby due in like 2 days' time.
It's like a year away. You've got enough brownie points by then.
Well, yeah, hopefully. But yes, it's, that is... Kev's got a young family as well, and so the UK scene is... We just have to like bite the bullet, basically. We've got to sign up for one of them, get our asses handed to us, just start that journey again. Because it is. It is.
I've been over there since 2002.
Yeah, mega.
So I've learned. I've done my time. So, but I still don't finish like right up there. I've had some reasonable place finishes. But I haven't really sort of cracked it. But it's one of those
high level competition.
And they're so good. Everybody else is so good. Like the names that we've just mentioned.
Yeah.
So what UK comps are you fishing this year?
So we trim it down. Always fish WPC, mostly because that wins you a ticket into the Holland one, and that's a hell of a lot cheaper way of doing it. So for the last 3 years in a row, we've had a fourth, a third. This year was a second. So next year's our year.
Right. Yeah. Nice.
It's got to be our year. We've had a couple of thirds actually, and never quite made it. Xander Mania is a good one. It's done in the spring, mate. The fishing this year.
I've seen some of those videos you took for on your Insta.
Mate, it was just
Xander in the shallows, and people commenting, "Where is that?" And you're just like, "He's Grapham."
Mate, it's unreal. This year, Kev and I, we never fish deeper than about 20 foot, 25 foot max. There's a load of people go up the dam end still, and they're vertical jigging. We just keep shallow. Sometimes less than 10 foot deep, and mate, we had 33 Xander We had 19 on the first day, and it was a joke. We had double hookups, 2 in the net at one stage, and like they're averaging 74, I think they averaged for us, and our winning total, we had 6 that averaged 81 in the end, which for Grafham's very good. You know, there's big numbers of those, like 70 to low 80s. We don't get those 90s and 95s that they get abroad, but the average stamp there is absolutely unreal.
It's a rich water.
Yeah, and we've spent a lot of time on that Xander fishing, and mate, the details. The Xander is the percentage game.
Yeah.
That 1 and 2 and 3% that you add on can literally be the difference between. Mate, we've had boats all around us.
Yeah.
And we had 19 Zs on the first day, and other people were going, we've had 4. We've had good anglers that have podiumed at Graffham before, and they're saying, what are you doing? And me and Kev, we tell everyone everything as well, and we're holding on going, you can't say anything, mate, you can't. And we look at each other, and we get pissed down the pub, and I'm looking at him, and he's having a chinwag with someone, and I'm like, mate, you can't, because they're gonna find out. There are a few things that we've clocked that we've worked on for about 2 years, and people will find out what they are. But for the next 2 years, we need to then find out what the next thing is, because it's always
cycling, evolving.
Yeah, and you need to stay one step ahead. So there's a couple of things we're keeping in the locker for Xander in particular that are just absolutely...
So Xander Mania, then what?
Xander Mania Lake Challenge as well. That's brilliant. Okay, mate, done on Rutland. So again, the format's changed a little bit, but it's pike, perch, and Xander. Again, this year, mate, we had. It was a 3-day tournament, and Kev and I had 5 20s up to £28 in about an hour and a half on the last day this year. Our perch card was all £3 pluses. Our Xander card, because traditionally Rutland's known for the little Xander, our Xander card was like averaging 72, which for Rutland's really good. We came second, and our pike were like 110 and 19. You know, it was like just unbelievable fishing in the spring. Crankbaits for perch, big plastics for pike.
Yeah, crankbaits for perch, favourite way to fish.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I love the diversity of that. You've got to put your Xander rod down, you've got to pick your pike rod up, depending on what your card is. You can see on the live app scores now who's catching what you need. You know, we worked out, because it was 2 pike, 4 Xander, I think, and 5 perch. And I think we worked out the totals. We were aiming for I was like, 650 is going to win it. Yeah. 660 will definitely win it. But if you're at 650, 640, you're going to be somewhere around there. You know, two pike of a metre, 40 plus, all 40 plus perch, and some good Xander 65 pluses. Mate, we had 725 and we came second. And it was like, you needed 110s, 19s, like all of our perch were 45s.
If you fish Predator Tour, you'll find that out in Holland.
Yeah.
If you're not catching 3 pike, metre 10, just don't even bother handing your card in.
That's the level of competition now, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially over there.
Well, especially with forward-facing sonar and everything else. But we can go into that as a different bag. But I reckon what are we on now? We must be on... Oh, we're over an hour. So, final question.
Yeah.
One item of tackle. You're going fishing, one item... Well, not necessarily tackle, but whether it's... Whatever. One item that you have to have with you when you're going fishing. What is it?
That's a good one.
You cannot do without.
It's not an item of tackle, it's a person.
Right.
It's Kev. Mate, we're so fortunate to have found each other.
Yeah.
That our personalities get on, our sense of humour. He's better at drinking than I am. But the way our fishing brains work as well, I am twice the angler because of him.
Yeah. And
I occasionally find myself having a day with someone else that I'll take someone else out or a friend or whatever.
Yeah.
And we have a good day, but I feel like 25% off figuring it out.
Yeah.
And there's something about that, me bouncing with him, that both takes us
you
up.
try something, you think, I could do that, but put a twist on it.
And
that boat partner is so important.
So mate, I think the root of your question is what can't you do without, because what helps you fish better. And mate, I could arguably swap my rods, swap my lures, swap my braids, swap my sonars, whatever. I couldn't swap Kev. It's just...
so is that next on the Westin product line, a blow up Kev Cox?
He's going to love that. Yeah.
Or a cardboard cutout.
Now I'm thinking if I've got any suppliers in China that could figure that
out. Mate, it's been brilliant. We're going to have to do this again. We've got so much. We haven't even scratched the surface.
I know, but that's what fishing's all about, mate, isn't it?
Thank you so much for
coming
on. Take care, buddy.
Cheers.